Let's go to Robbie first, though. Hi, Robbie. Morning.
Morning, Vanessa.
Hello. What do you think of what Anne Widdecombe said?
Yeah, I think she's factually accurate, telling the truth. In theory, she's challenging the machine language of the EU establishment. So Lammy, he's acting bipolar in the opposite reverse of what the EU is now polarising. So a North Pole, Brussels, and a South Pole, Strasbourg, as a macrocosm magnet, then processing all natural language within their macrocosm field, which currently is the Brexit natural language process. So Lammy...
I'd like to pretend I understand you, but I just don't understand a word you're saying. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but when you said processing the natural field in the macrocosm of their something or other, you utterly lost me, and I am paying attention. What are you talking about, Robbie?
Well, take example, Lammy. His language is bipolar.
What do you mean bipolar? His language is bipolar. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm taking it from this angle of processing natural lange.
I don't understand what that means, processing natural language. What are you? You're speaking some kind of language that I don't, unfortunately, understand. I would like to understand you, but I can't. What do you mean?
Well, okay, example.
Speak in just normal language so that we can get what you're saying. Otherwise, it's pointless.
Yes. Lammy, for example,
yes,
he relates to his social field as black, which is...
What does that mean? Relates to his social field? David Lammy is black. What do you mean he relates to his social field? He's not
black. That's a jargon.
He's not black?
That's a slant.
What is he?
He's not black. Natural language, that's the de-identification of natural origin. His natural origin is African Caribbean, or African, not black. That is a slant on derogatory jargon.
I mean,
also,
quite frankly, whether I agree with you or disagree with you is immaterial here. I can just simply say, so what? He's not talking about being black anyway. He's talking about the history of his people, and he doesn't describe himself as black. He just says that what Anne Widdecombe has said, comparing Brexit with slavery, he says is ahistorical. In other words, it's not historically accurate. It plays fast and loose with history, and that he says that I've got it here. It is impossible to explain how offensive and ahistorical it is for you to equate my ancestors tearing off their chains with your small-minded nationalist project. Shame on you. What is wrong with what he has just said?
He's enslaved himself to a continuation of the jargon to slave chain his ancestry.
What do you mean he's enslaved himself? I mean, I must say, Robbie, that it must be very difficult to be you, because every single word you utter makes it more difficult to understand what you're saying rather than less difficult. I would have thought the whole point of speech, though, is to make what you're thinking clear to the people listening to you. And I have to listen to you. It's my job. I have to. I can't be knitting a jumper or looking out the window. I have to listen to you. And with the best will in the world, sir, I find it impossibly impenetrable to get the hang of what it is you're saying.
What I'm saying is the EU have now positioned Ursula von der Leyen into a commission zone. The next armistice will arrive on the 31st of October, where the continuation of war of the EU machine language launched against English natural language. Take, for example, the emancipation of the Ottoman Empire with Israel. The British Empire didn't apply the correct language and renamed the region Israel.
Sir, I wish you well in all your endeavours, but I really cannot continue this conversation because I don't really understand what it is you're trying to say. Now, maybe my lovely listeners find you crystal clear, in which case, great, and maybe they'll ring up and explain. They might interpret for you, but all this stuff about the continuation of natural language, I fail to understand, and I read English literature at Cambridge, and I specialised in practical criticism, which is analysing the text of a conversation, and I can't understand yours, so sorry about that. And thank you so much for calling. I do appreciate the call and your time. All right, lovely listeners, we are discussing this after 9 o'clock. We're talking about Anne Widdecombe's remarks. We're also talking about Pride. We're also talking about the merchandising that's accompanying Pride and seeing what it is you think about it. But this morning we have another story for you too, and that is the story of Van Gogh's house. Now, you may think, what? Where would that have been? Which country would that have been in? If I told you that it was in Brixton, how would you feel about that? Let's go to our reporter, Ross Ryan, who's there this morning. Hello, Ross.
Morning, Vanessa. Well, I should say first, I've been informed that people get very annoyed if we say Brixton and we should say Stockwell.
Say Stockwell then, don't annoy anyone.
We're going to say Stockwell. The ladies round the corner would get annoyed if we didn't say it, so we're going to say Stockwell. What can we say about Vincent van Gogh, though? Obviously, Dutch Impressionist painter, one of the most famous Impressionist painters of all time. Everyone's heard of him. Born in 1853 and emerged as an artist really in the 1880s, and in that decade of the 1880s, painted over 2,000 artworks, most famously perhaps the Sunflower and Starry Night. A troubled soul, of course, famously cutting off his own ear, and really wasn't very successful in his own lifetime. What's not known, of course, is that he lived in London for a short period here in Stockwell at 87 Hackford Road. It was for about a year in the 1870s. The house has now been restored and is open to the public for the first time. To paint you a picture of what the house is like, it's 3 floors, it's terraced, the rooms have been very tastefully done so that you get an idea of what they might have been like in the 1880s. The plan is that the rooms are empty now, but what they're going to have in them is artists in situ who are going to work in there, then display their art, and you can come around and have a look in the spirit of Van Gogh. So I'm with Livia Wang now, who's the creative director of the Van Gogh house. Livia, first, the story of how your family bought the house in 2012, and it's quite an interesting story of how they came to acquire it, isn't it?
Yeah, so my father he trained to be a musician in China during the 80s, and as a man growing up in the Cultural Revolution, stories of creative people like Vincent van Gogh and Beethoven, who sort of had these artistic sort of lives of struggle, really resonated with young students at that time. And so when he came to the UK and saw that this house was up for sale and in a really sort of sorry state, it was sort of near dereliction, he thought, I have to buy it, I have to save it and turn it into a sort of creative project so it can still be enjoyed by people now.
So he's put his own money into it, his own time. You're now the creative director. Clearly, it's a very something that's very, very close to his heart and yours. Tell us about Van Gogh in London in the 1870s. Why was he here? What was he doing in this house in particular?
So in the 1870s, Van Gogh was 18. He'd just moved to London. He was working in his uncle's art dealership in Covent Garden. So it's sort of this very common story of a young person moving to a new city, starting a job for the first time, which really resonates with me and I'm sure lots of other young people across London, across the world. He just moved to this house and he was so excited because he'd already been at another boarding house living with some Germans, and they spent lots of money and he couldn't quite afford it, so he was really happy to find this place and to have a landlady who spoke French as well. And I think at that time his French was a lot better than his English, so he probably felt really comfortable being in this house, and he loved it. He loved it for the first few months, and at the end we know it sort of soured, which is quite interesting as well, and he writes about it in his letters.
Why did it sour? What happened?
No one's really sure, but at sort of near the end of his stay, he really, really wants to get his sister to come and stay with him. And he thinks, oh, she's going to train as a governess in London. This is like the perfect place to do it. And she stays for about a month, and she starts writing home saying, oh, I don't know what to say. Should I tell our parents? Things are starting to go a bit weird. Vincent, he sort of gets so disappointed when people don't live up to his expectations. So it's all sort of quite unclear.
The reason I ask is because there are rumours, right, that he fell in love with the landlady's daughter, but that love was unrequited, wasn't it?
Yeah, so this is something that I don't know if it can be ever proved. Things are alluded to in his letters and in his sister's letters. So Anne he invites his sister to come and stay in this house in London, saying, oh yeah, there's Sarah, my landlady, and Eugenie, her daughter, and it'd be so great, you can come and be like a sister with her, you can have a sisterly love. And she writes also home when she's here, talking about the mother and the daughter, and I guess people can make this connection when things go wrong. Your mind obviously jumps to this idea of love between the two of them, though I don't know if we can ever be sure.
So very quickly, tell me, what's the plan for the house now? The rooms are going to have artists in situ and people can come round and have a look, right?
Yep. So at the moment, the house is open for tours. We also have an exhibition on at the moment of an artist called Saskia Older-Wolbers, who did an installation in the house with Art Angel a few years back, and now we have her film on show. We also have a play coming up called Vincent's Brixton, based on Vincent van Gogh's letters and on a different play as well. And so you should come and look on our website and see tickets for that.
Perfect. So you can get tickets on their website. Come down to 87 Hackford Road in Stockwell to see the Vincent van Gogh house.
Thank you so much. That's Ross Ryan, and we'll be straight back with you, lovely listener, after the news, the travel and the weather at 9 o'clock.